Well, for those of you who understand the Marvel universe, you'll get this homily. And if you don't, I'll do the best I can. And if it's still a little confusing, ask your kids or grandkids. They'll clear it up for you, okay? Iron Man. Iron Man, one of the most interesting characters in the Marvel universe. If you followed his career in the movies, you'll know that in Iron Man 1, Tony Stark, that's his regular name, played by Martin Downey Jr., he is a very, very wealthy man, probably a billionaire, makes all his money building armaments for militaries around the world, specializes in missiles. He a technological genius, a giant egomaniac, totally in love with himself. He has a girlfriend, but his love is really mostly for himself. When he walks into the room, he's absolutely convinced he's the smartest person in the world, arrogant beyond belief. Amazing character. And in that first movie, he has a tragedy befell him, a multiple level of tragedy. He's captured by some terrorists where he is forced to build a machine to free himself, and he realizes that his heart needs to be replaced. And so he builds an artificial heart that he puts right in here to keep him going. And that artificial heart also not only keeps him alive, but it runs his machinery, runs his power suit, so he can fly around and defeat bad guys and things like that. But by Iron Man 2, in the second movie, we see something happening. That heart that he made is poisoning him. There are things in that heart that are slowly killing him. And he's realizing that he's going to die. And he doesn't know how to even face this. He's trying to come up with different ideas and is on the verge of losing hope. And he finally loses it at his birthday party. He behaves horribly, completely alienates his girlfriend, Pepper, totally alienates his best friend, Rhodey, has everybody fleeing his place screaming in terror, and then in a drunken state and realizing the disaster he caused, he simply flies away. In the next scene, you find himself sitting in a big, giant plastic donut in front of a donut shop, and he's sitting up there eating donuts, having no idea what to do. And a guy named Nick Fury comes out. Nick Fury is in charge of this organization called S.H.I.E.L.D. He's got this big patch on his eye, and he says, "Sir, I'll have to ask you to exit the donut. Come on down." They have a talk. And that talk is a very interesting talk, one of the best talks in the Marvel universe, that conversation. Because Tony Stark, who has, thinks his father never loved him or cared for him and ignored him, and now he has no girlfriend, he has no friends. Whoever would show up now has run away from him. He's dying. And in the course of this conversation, Mr. Fury looks at him in the eye and says, "Oh, I think your father did care about you. And I think that if you are open to it, you'll be able to solve the problem of your heart. Solve the problem of your heart." That line always jumped out at me. Now, of course, initially, when I went through the movies, these are spoiler alerts, but hey, this movie's been out for a long time. He's going to solve that problem of the mechanical heart because of his dad. Because of his dad and what his dad left him. He was able to basically design a whole new element that's going to fix his mechanical heart, so he'll no longer be dying because of it, but it will empower him. And so that's great. But that's on one level of fixing his heart. Because in the course of that conversation, Mr. Fury not only talks about the fact that your heart needs to be fixed, but what Mr. Fury means about heart is more than just the mechanics. He is talking about how Mr. Stark acts and behaves and confronts the world. because he kind of makes fun of me. He says, yeah, you're the guy who likes to do it all alone. You don't need help. How's that working out for you? And it kind of mocks Tony Stark for having his buddy leave with his own equipment and, being embarrassed in his own house. And the point is that Mr. Stark has another heart problem to solve, and that's how he views other people and how he views the world. And if you watch the rest of the movies, and some are very good, some are just funny, but if you watch them, you key on that character, Tony Stark, what you're going to see is an evolution of a character who goes from a totally egomaniac, self-centered person to someone who realizes he needs his girlfriend, he needs to get married, he needs to have kids, he needs to care about the world, to a man at the very end is going to sacrifice his life to save the universe. That's where he's going to go. He's going to go from totally about himself to giving himself entirely to save all else. That's the transition he makes. The problem of his heart. Now, why am I giving you all of this? So that we can understand today's second reading from St. Paul to the Colossians. St. Paul never heard of Tony Stark. He never heard of Marvel Universe. He never read a comic book. I don't know what a comic book was. But St. Paul understood the problem of the heart. And in today's reading, he says, you were buried with Jesus in baptism. You were raised with him through baptism. And through baptism and faith in the power of God who raised him from the dead. Even when you were dead in sin and transgressions, he brought you to life along with him, obliterated all bonds to this earth, removed from our midst by his nailing from the cross. Through baptism and our faith in the Lord, we receive that new heart that gives life. For without it, it's a heart that's going to stop. Now, they're all going to stop, but this is a heart from God. This is our spiritual heart that's going to transcend even death itself. That's part one. The new heart is there. Now, how is this new heart that every single one of us in this church has, because you've all been baptized, what are we going to do with it? How are we going to respond to it? If you look at Tony Stark and you see the transition through the movies of how he become very other-oriented and not about himself but about others, that's our challenge as well. To use this new heart that we have received by virtue of our baptism, our challenge is then to live a life that is more concerned with others. Not dwell on our all problems all the time, but try to take some time out for the good of others and our family, our neighbors, our parish, and among the poor. And how we do it and how we end up to do it is what is involved in every choice we're going to make for the rest of our life.